extremely complicated to me.
Hi,
I
so
already have,
my screen and the screen I'm recording or sharing rather.
yeah, you see, look at them. Yeah, this, those
Okay.
people are good.
So if this is fine, Prof, we can begin. I've already started recording.
Okay, good.
Okay,
So I
good.
can
So I
start.
can start. Yes, please.
I can start now.
Yes, please.
Okay, very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Let me start by apologizing for the little technical difficulties that we are having, and in the same time, giving my congratulations, sincere congratulations to your efficiency manipulating all those technology. I am totally unable to do that. So I will try to share with you what I can share, and for the rest, I will leave it to you. Good. So before I start, I want to make one point. When I initially sent you my slides, I called them a system dynamics interpretation of how Nigeria stabilized past her economy. And then I discovered that this experience of stabilization is not the first one. It has happened in the past. And it was done exactly the same way. And what is interesting is that the recipe is the same, and it is the recipe of the World Bank. So the first question that I'm going to ask is whether it is really Nigeria stabilizing her economy or is it the World Bank? But I will leave that for you to meditate on. Very good. So how did I organize my presentation? Well, if you look at the first group of slides, let's say the first 2 or 3 slides, I explain how the whole thing came about. And the whole thing came about, you have that on the slide called Some Background, the one that you have on your screen right now. It came from a good idea from our president, Dr. Sobanke, to attract our attention on a short paper that was produced by a gentleman called Mr. or Dr. Tanimu Yakubu, who is the DG of the Budget Office of the Federation. And the title of this paper is From Devaluation to Domination, How Tinubu's Exchange Rate Reforms Turned the Naira into Nigeria's Export Engine. So, of course, because it was an issue of economics and I was interested in it, I read the document and Dr. Sobanke made a very interesting comment. He said, look at this thing, it's very interesting. We need more stuff like this, and we should be able to comment on this and to come up with a system dynamics analysis and interpretation, and maybe come up with the causal loop diagram. And I thought that was a very good idea, and I took the challenge, and I said, let's do that. So I read the paper, and when I read the paper, I discovered so many interesting things. And what really attracted me or interested me is the fact that the paper was an exercise, skillful exercise of what I call political propaganda. And it's not, you should not take this word as something derogatory. After all, propaganda is a normal operation of government, and you cannot. I think it's Modibo who said that one day on a comment, and it's true. But it's a mixture of things that are false and true. And I thought it was a very, very good exercise for system dynamicists to use the technology of system dynamics to understand why I said that. Because I continue to state my point. This paper is a good exercise in propaganda. And how can we now use system dynamics to look at what in what sense I made that comment, right? And of course, the fact that I said that created quite a bit of discussion among us, which is exactly what is needed. System dynamics is a collective uh, uh, action. It is exchanging ideas to try to understand how systems work. So that's how the whole thing started. Good. So in order for me to be very clear in what I want to explain, I need to give some basic economics information to people who are not economists, and I need to give some basic information on system dynamics to people who are not system dynamicists. So let me start with the basic economics, and this is the slides that you are here. So what I want to talk about is supply and demand. So I have here a definition. Well, you know all what supply and demand is because you have all studied that in secondary school, and because I know I am talking to very learned people, you all know what is supply and demand. But basically, what is interesting in supply and demand is that both depend upon price. That's a basic, elementary method theory in economics, right? So if you look at the next slide, you can see if you look at what is an hypothetical supply curve, I have, a very simple example. You see that the quantity supplied increase with the price. Clearly, the more the price is exciting, the more supplier will be interested to sell. And conversely, if you look at demand, it's the contrary. Demand falls when the price is increasing. If I sell something at a very cheap price, I am much more likely to sell than. I remember a long time ago, I was doing some work for the Leventis company, which is the supplier of Coca-Cola in Nigeria, and they told me that when they increase the price just a little bit, there is a huge fall in demand. So it works. And when you put the two together, well, you have what you see on the next slide, which is the meeting of supply and demand. And when supply and demand meets, you have a market, right? So the lesson that you have to draw from that very simple analysis is that both supply and demand depend upon the price, right? So what interests us is the exchange rate. And because the exchange rate is a price, I have said, well, let's assume that the exchange rate, which is the price of dollar in Naira, depends upon supply and demand. Supply and demand of what? Well, supply and demand of forex, right? So that already gives you an idea of but we have to dynamize that. We have to make that a little bit dynamic. So let's look at the way the economists are working. Well, the economists are not too good with dynamic things. So they do something that is called comparative statics. So they told you what happens in one situation of equilibrium, and then what happens in another situation in equilibrium when you change something. But they do not tell you how you reach there. They just show you the two. So here on that slide here, which shows what happens when demand increases, well, you see that you both have an increase in price and an increase in quantity, right? And similarly, you can do the same analysis when supply is increasing. And when supply is increasing, what do you have? You have a lower level of price, which is normal because there is more supply, and also a higher level of quantity, right? But when you have that, right, you don't know, you know how you start, you know how you end, but you don't know what happens in between. And what is interesting, of course, is what is happening in between, because this is the whole process of adjustment. And adjustment is one of the critical elements of economic policy. Get back to an equilibrium when you have left a previous equilibrium. You have two things that matter when you are a policy responsible in Nigeria or in anywhere in the world. It is stability and growth, right? Now, to understand what is the systemic difference between stability and growth, you have to understand system dynamics. You cannot understand it if you are just an economist. And this is why in the next slides, I have an introduction for people who are non-system dynamicists. What are the basic concepts in system dynamics? And that, of course, I guess all of you know because you are the system dynamics chapter of the System Dynamics Society of the world, as a matter of fact. So there are three things in system dynamics that you must know. The first thing is the difference between stocks and flows. And the difference is very simple. Stocks are processes of accumulations, and flows are the variable that drive the stock, either by increasing them or by draining them. Then you have to know about causality, and causality is something which is very simple to talk about, but in fact very complex to really discover. It is the reason why things happen. And you have I explained the mathematical formulation. What is important here for us to know is the fact that in a causal loop diagram, when we draw an arrow, it means that the arrow starts from the cause and it lands on the effect, right? And that's what you have to know. What is the nature of that causality? Then we can talk about it later. But I'm not going to go into that because that is moving from system thinking to system dynamics. System thinking is just to say, well, between A and B, there is a cause. System dynamics is to say, okay, what is the nature of that cause? What is the functionality of that cause? Very good. And finally, the third and last and most important aspect of this little part of my demonstration is the feedback. Now, the feedback is just a closed chain of causality. You know, it is you start from a cause and you go through the chain and it closes on what was initially the cause, and that becomes an effect. And in reality, it is only possible to have this kind of things if you have a dynamic, right? Now, what is important in the feedback analysis in system dynamics is the type of feedback loops that you can encounter. And you can only encounter two. There are only two types of feedback loops. There are the feedback loops that are
Hi, Prof, we can hardly hear you.
and there are the feedback loops that are generating a negative dollar. Sorry?
Okay, now you're back. We lost you for a bit.
Oh, you lost me a bit.
Yeah.
When was it? Okay, let
When
me
you were talking
start
about the
again.
two feedback loops, but that's fine. You can just proceed there.
Okay, very good, very good. I
Sorry,
can
sir.
continue.
Sorry, sir. We want to hear about the two types of feedback loops. That
I
was
am.
what we
I,
love.
Okay, very good. I'm going back to that. Yes, two types of feedback loops. You are right to ask that question because it's critical for my demonstration. Two types of feedback loops. There are feedback loops that are balancing. In other words, feedback loop whose job it is to go back to bring a system back to equilibrium, right? And you do that by fixing a target. For example, in the case that is interesting us, we have two markets. For the Naira, we have an official market and we have a black market. And it cannot continue for this indefinitely because the distortion in the economy are too large. So we have to go back to an equilibrium. So we fix a target. For example, the official rate must be the same as the black market rate. And when we reach that equilibrium, we stop. So it is a loop that is generating a return to an equilibrium. And that is exactly the loop that the gentleman in his presentation has described. But it is not growth. In order to generate economic growth, you need a reinforcing loop. And he has never talked about reinforcing loop, but he has implied in his demonstration that the balancing loop was also generating growth. And this is why I say it's propaganda. So it's not bad propaganda because you need a balancing economy before you can grow it. And then when you grow your economy, you are also responsible for making sure that it keeps in balance. Because if it does not keep in balance, your economy will be again in a state of disequilibrium and growth will stop. And you will continue to have problems. And that, if I may say, is exactly the story of the Nigerian exchange rate since 1990. And as long as we do not solve that problem once and for all and establish an equilibrium system in which there is growth, we're not going to make progress. So that is my positive criticism of the paper. But where the gentleman is correct and is right, and it is important to underline it, is the fact that you cannot have economic success if we do not have equilibrium. Therefore, it is perfectly appropriate to say Tinubu has done a good job. The only criticism that you could say is, could it have been done at a cheaper price? But that nobody can answer that question. So that's the loop analysis. Good. So how do we apply that now to our problem? How do we put economics and system dynamics together? Well, I have to refer to, because unfortunately I did not invent that. I would have loved to be the one inventing it, but the inventor of this thing is a Japanese gentleman. We did a lot of work with Professor Forrester when he was alive, and he has created a dynamic supply-demand model. His name is Kaoru Yamaguchi. You will find his name on the internet. He's well known. He has written a huge book, and he's very much interested in system dynamics. And you have the graph. If you go to the next slide, you will see you will see the graph, and the graph is very simple. And this is exactly the way a market dynamically adjusts to a change in supply or demand, right? And in order to be able to do that, you must introduce a stock. In other words, when you have a relationship between price, supply, and demand, you have a relationship between price and two flows, supply and demand, and there is no stock. So you must have a stock. So look, it's very simple. It works like this. You know that the price affects supply and affects demand, right? Price is also production, supply is also production, and demand is also shipment. And both of them, production and shipments, are the flows that are driving your inventory. Good. Now, your inventory is what it is, but you may not like the price. So you say, well, if I move my inventory, I will affect the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded, and therefore I will affect the price. So all you have to do is to create a relationship between inventory and desired inventory, and have that relationship affect the price. And then you control the price, provided you have an inventory. So my modest contribution to that research effort, is to say, but look, the exchange rate is a price, right? And the inventory is forex. So we can replicate this to the management of the exchange rate. And if you replicate this to the management of the exchange rate, we have something that is the management of the exchange rate. And it's there on the so what you have on the next price here, on the next slide here, is an explanation of the diagram. In fact, it is the same diagram as the diagram of the slide before, but it is a little bit enhanced to show you the decision process. So if you look at the desired inventory, we are still talking about the supply-demand market. No, we are not talking yet of the exchange rate. The desired inventory is a function of demand, right? You want to have in inventory what people want to buy, right? Very good, right? And then you have your own inventory, which is there. So you have a stock of stuff, and you have a stock of information. Desired inventory is an information. Inventory is, goods. Right? And that is very common in system dynamics. So you look at the fraction between the two, the fraction between actual and desired. And it is that fraction that decides what to do with the price, right? If you look at your actual inventory and it is larger than what you want to have, you cut the price, right? And if you cut the price, then you increase sales. And on the reverse, if your actual inventory is less than the desired inventory, you increase your price to reduce sales. And that can apply verbatim to the management of the exchange rate. And it is exactly the way it has been done in Nigeria. Because at the end of the day, what is the desired level that you want to reach, it is the level of the black market. Because when you reach the level of the black market, my dear friend, you are not you have reached another equilibrium. So it's the black market that runs the show. And this is exactly what we have done. The Naira now is 1,400 and something, which is basically the same rate as the black market. There is 1 or 2 Naira or 10 Naira difference, nothing. So indeed, Tinubu has stabilized the economy, right? Good. All right. So this is now the analysis in terms of feedback loops. And if you look at the feedback loops, then I explained in the slide before how you find out if a feedback loop is balancing or reinforcing by just looking at the relationship between each node. If one increases when the other increases, it is plus. If one increases when the other decreases, it is minus, right? And when you do the analysis in system dynamics of this, you find out that all the loops are balancing. Therefore, this is not a system that generates any growth, right? And if the author of the paper had been a system dynamicist, he would have done this exercise and he would have stopped telling us that it is enough for the exchange rate to be stable for the economy to grow, because that does not make the economy to grow. Good. All right, so now we adapt the model to the exchange rate management. And we have exactly the same thing. We have the exchange rate, which is a price affecting both demand and supply. What is demand? It is import, right? And what is supply? It is non-oil export, right? And when you increase non-oil export, you increase the forex inflows and you have more foreign reserves. And when you increase the import, you increase the forex outflow and you have less forex reserve. And then you have a desired forex reserve, and your forex reserve and your desired forex reserve combine to define what is your exchange rate, right? And at each time, you have an increase in the stock. Good. So whether it is an increase in demand or an increase in supply. And if you look at and we have never been at my point. Good. So you have, to summarize what I've said, you have an instrument which is the policy that you implement, and you have two quantities or two elements of system that you're looking at: your exchange rate and your forex reserve. And this is what drives the system, right? Good. So what I have done something a little bit more complex, but I want to say that this is still work in progress. My model does not yet simulate. I still have to do quite a bit of analysis but I'm getting that. Oh, okay. Yes, they're there. Okay, good. So if you look at, now I will go quickly on that because you people can read and look at it on the slides. But basically what I want to show here is that all the loops in my model here are balancing. There is no loop that is not balancing. Therefore, this is not a model of growth. It's a model of stability. It is the necessary but not sufficient condition for the economy to prosper, right? Good. So let me go quickly through all those loops here, and this is the control mechanism. And let me go to the end of my presentation and explain this. So here I am trying to explain why is the write-up a clever piece of political propaganda. I have put in annex the whole document that I am working on, the paper by the gentleman. Sorry?
Please, can I ask a question?
You may absolutely ask a question, my dear.
Okay. The loop you have, the diagram, your CLD, of course, is perfect. But my problem here is the write-up the minister tried, is it the minister, somebody tried to portray, to show us is that by, if I may use the word manipulating or fixing the forex, that there will be stability. Is it really the same as what you know to be true? And does it really reflect what you have here on this diagram? Because
Yes,
from what I can see, the exchange rate is a product of it's the result of a number of interactive variables. So does it really reflect, is what he was trying to say, is it really reflective of what you have here?
yes. You see, I guess I know who you are because you have already made that point earlier when we were discussing. You are both right and wrong. Okay, first, okay, my model is a simplification of reality. So you are correct to say that the exchange rate depends on many other things but supply and demand. I agree with that. But it is not because I have simplified that explaining that the exchange rate only depends upon, that the price only depends on demand, that there is propaganda. There is simplification. Propaganda is to say that something can do what it cannot do, right? So it is true that the exchange rate depends on other things but it is also true that the exchange rate is now stable, and it is what my demonstration shows. In other words, by acting on both forex and the control of supply and demand, if you can, and of course, by acting also on I will come to that later, by also acting on the stock itself, you create stability. So the man is right on this, right? What is the problem is that he attributes to the exchange rate stability properties that it does not have. It is not because you have exchange rate stability that your economy will grow. It is because you have exchange rate stability that your economy will be stable and then will be in a position to grow. But for your economy to grow, there must be other things. For example, you have to be able to import and to be able to export, excuse me. And to be able to export, you have to be able to produce. And to produce is part of a reinforcing loop, which is not in his demonstration. Are you following me, madam?
Sure, sir. Yeah.
But you are correct when you say that the exchange rate depends on quite a number of other things outside of, the demand and supply, or of the quantities. I agree, but this is not an argument that you can use. It's not because there is simplification that there is propaganda. When there is simplification, you can challenge a model because it's too simple, but you cannot say it's propaganda. You say it's propaganda only if the model is supposed to demonstrate something or is told to demonstrate something that it does not demonstrate. And that's the point I've made. This is why you should not take the term propaganda here in a derogatory manner. It's just a word that I use to say, well, it is to say something that, for example, if I say that I am the most intelligent Frenchman on earth, it's propaganda, right? It's also a great simplification. Very good. All right. Good. So,
Prof.
You see, my point is exactly this. If you look at my Annex 1, Section 3, which is the verbatim transcription of the paper of that gentleman, there is in item 5 in which he says Naira stability creates investor confidence and long-term growth. This is where propaganda is. Naira stability creates investor confidence. Investor confidence does not create long-term growth. No way. The investor may have all the confidence in the world and may not the factors of production that are necessary. This is another part of the economy. This, because you know me, what I see is that it is an interpretation that I have of the problem of the Nigerian economy, and it may not be, an interpretation that I will
Hello, Prof, we've lost you for a bit.
Maybe we can take, depending the time it will come back, maybe we can take a question and document those questions.
will keep forever. But the impression that applies that yet to the but I do not think that the governments so far in Nigeria were very much interested in generating long-term growth. And this is for reasons that it is not, the place to discuss here, but it's very much related to balance of power, making Nigeria prosper. I'll stop here. So, but that's an interpretation. Now, it may be that the present administration has a different perspective, and we will know very soon. And what I think we should look at when particularly the new tax law is put in operation is what is done with the money. Looking at what is done with the money will tell you a lot about the real intention of that government. But let me go back to the. So let me read exactly here. You see, this is the what you see on your screen right now. Is that thing where it's the item 5, the last line of that slide. It's where I have a problem. It is true that Naira stability creates investor confidence, but Naira stability does not necessarily involve long-term growth. Long-term growth is not created by the exchange rate. Long-term growth is facilitated by the exchange rate. But what creates long-term growth is production, is education, is health, is human capital, is innovation, is creation of businesses, right? And it's not there. It has nothing to do with the exchange rate. And that's the point where I find that paper missing. Although it is correct in many respects, but here it is not correct. You see? So I put it here. If you go back to my slide, which is just before the annexes, which is why it is the write-up, a clever piece of political propaganda. I said, my CLD shows that achieving Naira stability results from balancing loops. Their purpose is to bring dynamic systems back to equilibrium through the attainment of a target. And when you attain your target, you stop there. You see, my friend Modipo is seeking a PhD. When he gets there and he gets his PhD, which I'm sure he will do, he will stop there. He will continue to learn, but he doesn't need another one. Well, maybe he will need another one. But if he needs another one, he will do the same. He will fix another target and he will go there. That is equilibrium, is knowledge. But it's the fact that he wants another PhD is because he wants to grow. It's not part of the process by which he acquires. This is very, very important. So Balancing loops do not alone create economic growth, which are not only be created by processes that are described by reinforcing loop. There is no doubt that to grow, an economy must first be stabilized by a specific process. But economic growth requires the intervention of another different specific process to occur. And that process is through investment, saving, capital accumulation, production, income generation, saving again, investment again. That is the loop you have here on the next slide. If you go to the next slide, you will see the loop that creates growth. Move to the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. You see? So, and then he says also in Annex 1, Item 5, he says the feedback loop is textbook economics. Well, I looked for the feedback loop, I didn't find it. So if you can find a feedback loop there, you will be, it's not a feedback, you see? So then I said my CLD uses as inputs important variables like import, net oil export, non-oil export, diaspora remittances, debt services. These variables originate from the section of the Nigerian economy where economic growth is actually created. And that's not the same section that is dealing with the exchange rate. That is dealing with domestic economy, right? So yet, except export, although export boom is a process and not a variable, they do not appear in the write-ups loop. What is missing is the basic reinforcing loop which create economic growth, and this is the following. People are saving, that saving is transformed into investment, that investment contributes to capital accumulation generates production, production generates income, and income generates saving, and saving goes back into capital accumulation. And it is that process that creates growth, right? And for that, you need businesses, you need educated people, you need resources, it has nothing to do with the balancing of the exchange rate. So in conclusion, stabilizing the economy is necessary. Savings and investment are unlikely to occur in an unstable economy, but it is not sufficient. Only economic growth generates the output and income which drives international trade. This is why economic diversification and the multiplication of revenue sources are critical to Nigeria's economic development, yet it is not happening. And the question that all of you should ask yourself is why is it not happening? I am personally convinced that it is not at all impossible for Nigeria to grow at anywhere between 5 and 10% per year and to be sustained over quite a number of years. But there must be political will. Where is it? And with those words, ladies and gentlemen, I will stop my presentation and thank you very much for your attention.
Awesome. Thank you, Prof, for the presentation. I don't know if there are questions for Prof. If you have a question, please feel free to unmute and share it.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. I have this question. Thank you for the presentation once again, and the moderator also. We appreciate you for that. Can you please help me to find out where he listed 1 to 5 points and trying to see the relationship between them, where you underlined the other time? Yes, this place. My question, I have 2 questions, but one is centered on this slide, which looks at the export boom leading to forex inflow. Export boom leading to forex inflow. So my question quick is, what then is our export boom? What particular thing are we exporting? Okay, that has resulted in the influx, forex inflow. And the second question is, since you said the production is not inside these the items they have listed, that there's no production there, that is that stability should have facilitated by the naira stability. I mean, Naira stability is supposed to lead to production facilitated by investors and confidence. So my second question is, what is the implication of tax, the new tax regime on this old model? What is that is just started this January? And I believe by their promise that, somehow we might possibly be having some other income from there. So what is the implication? What kind of implication will it going to have on this model? Thank you, Prof.
Good. Can I answer those questions?
Yes, please. Let's go ahead with those first. Yeah.
Okay. So the first question, the second question, there was a little bit of a problem because I think we lost the network for a few seconds. So I didn't. So I will ask the gentleman to please kindly repeat the question. But the first question is, you actually put your finger exactly where I put mine, and you've got it. There was no export boom. There was no export boom. We are still exporting the same thing, but it's just cheaper. So people are buying more. That's what is happening, right? So and it's true that the export, because, and he says it in his presentation. He says, well, because we reduced the price, there was more demand and we sold more, but we did not export more things that we were exporting. Our product range, our product map is the same. If really you want an export boom, so it's wrong to say export boom. And I say, this is why I said first export boom is not a variable. When you draw a feedback loop, you draw a feedback loop based on variable, not based on processes. Export boom is a general thing. Export boom is just something that you can model, right? What is the variable is export. So if you increase the number of things, of goods and services that you export, then you can say, yes, there is an export boom. But here we did not increase anything. We didn't. There was no increase in production anywhere. We were just selling more of the same. And of course, because the price was higher, maybe the producers were drawing a little bit more on their stock. So it's not really an export boom. And that's, again, is misleading. My answer to your first question is yes, you are right. This relationship is not, there is nothing spectacular about it. It's just because the price went down, so they bought more, period, And he says it himself if you read the paper very well. Now, the second question is about I didn't really get it very well.
The second question was about, Prof, the second question was about the impact of the new tax regime on this model.
The new tax regime, yes, absolutely. Now, I think I answered that question quickly in my presentation. Everything will depend upon what the government does with the money. The new tax regime, if it works, should free a lot of cash and make a lot of money available in the system. Now, what is that money going to do? Is that money going to be reinvested or recirculated in the system to grow consumption, to create more demand, to create more production? Or is it going to be, channeled to private pockets and feed corruption, or wasted by projects that will lead nowhere? So and we will see that in less than a year. We will know if the tax. My own vision, my own feeling is that the present administration wants to use that tax money to finance investment, and to finance investment maybe in health, maybe in education, and maybe to finance in some productive sector. If it is so, then it is a good move, and it will show that government wants to grow the economy. But if it is not done this way, if the money is not being used properly, then one more time we will be obliged to observe that the government is not meeting what is expecting of us, of them. So I think we should give the government the benefit of the doubt and be watching. But the answer to your question is everything depends upon what is going to be done with the money.
Yeah, thank you, Prof, for the answer. So allow me to unmute and then Olusegun to unmute and to ask your questions.
Okay, Prof, thank you so very much for enlightening us further on how to use systems thinking and dynamics to model Nigeria's economic problems and probably be able to find solutions, suggest solutions if they will hear us. So, having said that, I would just like to make a few comments and probably ask that you kindly validate it, or if wrong, enlighten us further. This claim that forex reform has brought realistic naira, I somehow do not think that's the proper way to frame it, because exactly what is realistic naira? Uh, Even at 1,004 plus of 1,004 plus naira to the dollar, I don't think that's a good exchange rate for the economy to pick up. That's number one. And given that, can we really say that that's realistic? Then the other thing I think the government is trying to do by this fixation on working on the exchange rate rather than the variables that should give us favorable exchange rate is perhaps to stabilize it, hoping that just being stable will attract investment. But as we have seen, I may be proven wrong, the investment is not forthcoming. Rather, they actually live. I mean, money is leaving Nigeria, investment is leaving Nigeria. So, is it really true that that cheaper USD prices, in my opinion, is not cheaper in any way, is bringing about forex inflows? I don't believe it, but I would like to hear again from you if it is really true. Then, as it pertains to the question that the last speaker asked, I mean, having to do with the the new tax regime. There are a number of clauses in that tax regime that will further do harm to investment inflow into Nigeria. I've tried to go through the provisions of that those tax laws, and some of them will not do us any good. I mean, if it won't help to it won't help to create the environment for long-term growth. That's my conclusion, given what I see in the tax laws. So, Prof, please, can you enlighten us further as to how this forest reform can be said to have given us a realistic naira? Thank you, sir.
Well, Madam, that's a lot to eat that you're giving me now. All right. So let me start with what you said at the beginning. Now, we have to separate sentiment from facts. To me, a realistic naira is an era which balances supply and demand. A realistic price is a price which creates a market. If there is no market, the price is not realistic. Now, a realistic naira may be good or may be bad. And you are right when you say that at 1,400 is not very good. Well, you should, from time to time, you should take a look at the documents that the World Bank is producing, because they are very much enlightening. Now, for the exchange rate to move in the direction that you wish, in other words, for the exchange rate to be more favorable to Nigeria, it has to come down. Don't forget that when you have a parallel market, a black market, and an official market, it is a great avenue for speculation. Because if you are part of those lucky ones who have access to both markets, you can make a lot of money without creating an inch of value, just by moving from one market to another. You know, you buy on the black market and you sell on the official. And as long as there's a difference between the two, you enrich yourself by doing nothing. So you have to eliminate speculation. And you can only eliminate speculation by producing more. You know, the two are connected. So what the World Bank is telling Nigeria now, the World Bank is telling Nigeria, be careful. You have achieved equilibrium. You have an era which is realistic. That means that doesn't mean that it is good. It is realistic. It is balancing supply and demand. It is balancing, you know, the amount of money that comes in and the amount of money that goes out. Right. Good. But it is doing so for one reason, for one major reason. You are attracting a lot of short-term investment in Nigeria. The investment that comes in Nigeria doesn't stay. It comes because the rate of interest is more interesting than it will be on other places. So people come, invest in Nigeria, take their profit and leave. That does not create growth, and you are correct. What you need is long-term investment and not short-term investment, and that is not happening. And second, Nigeria is also keeping the market balance by manipulating the value, exactly as I explained, by using open market operation. You know, you sell naira to buy dollars, or you don't sell naira. So you buy dollars with naira, or you sell dollars to get naira, and you buy. But those are short-term. So in other words, the equilibrium of the market is achieved through short-term measures, but that cannot last forever. You need to have long-term growth, as you have said, and to have long-term growth, you need to have investment. Now, in order to have investment, you need to have an exchange rate of the naira that is favorable, because the exchange rate of the naira drives what you can buy or not buy abroad. And if you want to invest, you have to buy abroad, because you don't produce the capital goods here, right? And with an era at 1,400, it is very difficult. So you are in a difficult situation. And this is why all the money that is collected, and I am sorry, I cannot be more specific than I am, because I do not know the tax law very well. I just know what concerns me, but I don't know all those details that you are talking about. I don't know about them, so I cannot answer on this. But if the tax law is organized in such a way that it will free money in order to finance investment that will be good for Nigeria to produce more, to put more goods and services on the market, and that will result in a decrease in the rate of exchange. But it will take time. It will not happen overnight. Then the government will have done well. If this does not happen, then it will again be a missed opportunity. That's the best I can. But you know, we can talk about that for ages, because many of the points that you are making are correct. I agree with you. It's not a good exchange rate, but it's not because it's not a good exchange rate that it is not realistic. You know, I hope you get my point.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof, for that response.
I do, and I agree.
Also, I think we'll allow. Yeah, sorry, Prof. There are a couple more hands, and would like to give everyone the opportunity. So please, Mr. Olusegun, can you unmute and ask a question or make a contribution?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Prof, for the presentation. My interest is on knowing the impact of the Venezuela oil, because I just moved to the oil and gas sector, not quite a month now, but I moved into that sector. And I'm beginning to see the impact of I'm beginning to imagine the impact of assets of the US to Venezuela oil. What do you think would be the impact on your model? Because most of the bulk of the export or inflows that we are getting, they are more driven by our petrodollar. So what would be the impact of such geopolitical shakeup on your model? And how do you think it will affect your future model that you'll be discussing with us? Thank you.
Wow. Mr. Olusegun, I am not God. And I'm not even sure God can understand what Trump is trying to do. I don't know. I will tell you, I cannot answer your question. What I can say, see, your question is interesting because it shows that if you want to have a global view of a problem, a model must be complex, a lot more complex than what I have showed you. What I have showed you is just a small part of but you are right, the oil sector has a great, for example, what has contributed to stabilize the Naira is the fact that oil production has increased, and is the fact that we are refining oil in Nigeria now rather than having to buy it abroad. Definitely, so those were two good moves. Now, what's going to happen? We don't even know what's going to happen in Venezuela right now. We don't know. We don't know what the Americans are going to do there. We don't know if there will be an influx of production. What I know right now about Venezuela is that the oil companies that were in Venezuela before are reluctant to go there again, because they said that the economy of Venezuela has been destroyed so much that it will create quite a bit of effort and cost a lot of money to reinvest. But if the production of oil in Venezuela is increasing, it may affect the oil market. And if it affects the oil market, it will affect the price. And if it affects the price, it will affect Nigeria. And, freeing Nigeria or deconnecting as much as possible Nigeria's economy from the price of oil is something that Nigeria should have done since independence, right? Or at least since the 1970s or 1980s, and Nigeria did not do it. So we have accumulated and this is why diversification is absolutely critical for this economy. Yeah, so that's all I can say. But I'm not really able to go deeper than that. I'm sorry if my answer disappoints you a little bit.
Thank you, Prof, for the answer. We'll take it at that. Dr. Victor, do you want to unmute and ask your question or make your contribution?
Yeah, thank you. There's another question, Prof. Just to help us to put more light to this. Regarding production, where we are looking at the last stage where Niger stability to increase which increase our investors' confidence, facilitate investors' confidence to help in our growth. I remember during the last government, very precisely, there was a little attempt to increase production of rice in the country, and where this kind of where importation of foreign rice was banned, and in order to encourage the local farmers to grow rice. And immediately after policy was in place, something else happened. The local rice are supposed to increase in sales, then their prices then goes up. And what then happened? People could not consume the local rice, the local rice anymore. And there was shouting, the price of rice increased, and everybody were shouting that the production, and that's again, immediately the new government came in, have to find a way of reversing such a policy that ought to have increased production of rice. And so I'm looking at what is it possible that if this current government try to put in such a policy in order to stimulate production, local production, what about the attitude of Nigerians like the one we experienced during the last regime? Is it possible that such again can affect your model, affect the intention of the government in order to stimulate production? I don't know if you are able to pick up what I was trying to say, sir.
Well, I'm not sure I understand very well what you are saying, but let me tell you what I understand. What you are saying is that there should be an effort to stimulate production. And of course, that's what the government should do. What is the purpose of raising taxes? The purpose of raising taxes is to give government more money to be able to execute transfers that will facilitate the development of the economy, I think, right? So if it is so, if this is what actually is being achieved, then we're done, we're doing well. But if it is not achieved, if money is being taken away from the system and not used productively, then instead of growth, we'll have decrease. There is one, I think it's a lady who said that removing money from the economy may not be good for growth, and it's true. It may create recession. So this is why I said what you do with the money of the taxes will be critical. If you remove purchasing power from the Nigerian economy, and this is what you do. For example, I have calculated that the amount of money that will be removed from my salary from January because of the new tax law is quite substantial. And therefore, if that money is not used productively somewhere else in the economy, it's money that I'm not going to spend. And therefore, it's going to affect the economy when you multiply by millions, tens of millions of consumers. So it is important that the money that is collected from the taxes is well managed and well utilized. And this we do not know what's going to happen. It's too early to say, right? So if to relate this to my model, if you have an economic policy which stimulates non-oil exports, because that's exactly what you have to do in order to facilitate. Let's look. You can go back. See, it's very clear. Go back to the slide here where you have, where you have adapting the Kaoru Yamaguchi model to exchange rate management. If you stimulate non-oil export, you get more foreign inflow and you get more foreign reserves. Exactly, right? It's the one after this one. It's the adaptation of that model to the exchange rate. Is it a few slides after that? Yes, this one, right? So you see, it's the link that goes from exchange rate to foreign reserves, which is on the left of the slide, right? Anything that is increasing foreign reserve is a good thing, because anything that is increasing foreign reserve is going to bring it closer to desired foreign reserve, and is going to create the faster the stable exchange rate that you're looking at. And the more you import, the more forex outflow you are going to generate, and the more dangerous it is for your economy. So you must have a balance between the two constantly, and you keep that balance by both managing import and by managing export. The management of the economy is in the hand of people who are in charge of fiscal policy and in the hand of people who are in charge of monetary policy, and they have to work together. There must be very strong coordination. which has lacked in the Nigerian economy in the past. And now it is happening much better because of the organization of the government. There is a close cooperation between the Ministry of Finance and the central bank, and it is good. But then there's still a lot of work to do to generate growth. And of course, one thing that you also mentioned is the attitude of Nigerians. Nigerians do not trust their government, and to reestablish that trust will take time. In other words, what I'm saying is that nothing is lost for Nigeria, but there is a lot of work.
Can I please step in? Victor, Prof, if you let me.
Yeah, sure.
Am I correct to, I'm trying to reframe your question. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So I think what he's specifically asking regarding the previous government was the issue of rice. You know, there was a ban on importation of rice.
Yeah.
And then there was an encouragement, a deliberate encouragement of the federal government to make people produce rice.
Yeah.
Now, in the long run, rather not in the long run, after the implementation of those policies, the prices of rice went up.
Has gone up, yeah.
And so people could not consume local rice.
Yeah.
So when this new administration got in, they now decided to scrap away with those policies and all those interventions and allowed for the importation. So now I think your specific question, Victor, if I'm correct, is that what went wrong, and if at all the process or what the government is doing now, is that the correct way? Am I correct, Victor?
Yes, and to add to that, is there any way does the government need any kind of a policy to check from the side of the producer as well, so that what occur during the rice production again will not reoccur again?
Yeah, I understand much better now that Modibo has made this point. Okay, now the problem is why the price should have come down. Why did the price go up? You know, you see, there are people who are playing ball, and there are people who are not playing ball. You know, if people are taking advantage of a government policy to enrich themselves, then of course why did the price increase? If imports were banned, now I think it's wrong to ban import. It's wrong to prevent trade to happen. It's done, but you know. So if you encourage producers to produce more, right, and you know, if producers feel that they are in a position of strength, what is the first reaction that they will have? They will increase their price. Isn't it?
Yes.
So this is what I think. Sometimes you see, there is a statement that an eminent Nigerian made to me a long time ago, which I always remember. He said, our problem in Nigeria is that we have no sense of space and we have no sense of time. In other words, we want immediate gratification. And having immediate gratification may be extremely detrimental in the long term. It's a lesson that every system dynamics model that I've produced is teaching me, that any greed that you develop in the short term will go after you in the long term. So maybe because the producer of rice, the local producer of rice, felt that they were, you know, suddenly powerful, they took advantage to increase their price, which is not what should have happened.
No.
They should have increased production.
No, but you know, it's just excuse me, let me just comment, Prof. It's a rather interesting situation because I farm rice myself.
Yeah.
First of all, it's purely a demand and supply issue. There's the problem of politics and political will. Demand and supply, we are only
I think we can't hear Prof anymore.
Single season rice farming country. We also farm that, but because I think Madam had very, very interesting points. And it's something that we discussed earlier before this call when you were talking about Dr. Shamsuddin and whether politics is where we should look at. But you yourself ended your presentation that political will is the most important
Sorry,
thing.
Modi,
No, it is.
we've missed a great part of your comments.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so I'm trying to
rice farmer is here. I'm very, very happy a rice farmer is here. Please, before you enlighten us further, can I bring something up that we may be overlooking? You see, usually when a product is banned, the normal thing is for them to increase the tariffs. Everything related to the importation of that product is the cost of importation of that particular product is usually very high to discourage importers. Now, with that kind of a situation, and given that the level of insecurity in the country did not allow the smaller farmers who normally augment the what the big farmers who are not many anyway are bringing to the market, brought about this supply deficit that you were talking about. And in the midst of all this, I happen to know that there were people who were still importing rice at very high cost. So that was what gave rise to the high cost of rice at that time, that made both local and foreign rice very expensive. That's my understanding of what played out at that time. But since we have a rice farmer here who can enlighten us further, please, I'm very much interested to know other things that I don't know about that period, because if you ask me, I will say that part of the reason was the insecurity, because I was around Gombe, Bauchi, and the rest of them going to farm. In fact, you will see farmlands where people are not farming at all because of insecurity. So, but I'm interested to hear more from somebody who will be in that space.
You know, Madam, you're absolutely right to cite insecurity, but the rather general issue was we were not producing enough. It goes back to the issue of demand and supply. If you're not producing enough, you can't determine the price. So Nigerian smallholder farmers, with or without insecurity, were not producing enough rice to control the market. So if I'm producing less as a small scale farmer, I'd rather just store it in my store when the prices go up and then I sell. So there was a huge shortage of rice. Now, if the Nigerian rice that we're producing is more expensive, or the gap is not too, the marginal gap is not too wide, then the person can as well go and import rice. So the government did not do enough. So I mean, my argument against the government was that banning, yes, is hurtful, but there were other implements that they needed to get into, which Prof cited, is that some people took it as a rent-seeking opportunity because we don't produce herbicides or pesticides in this country. And even if we do, we don't produce it to good quality or enough supply to saturate the market for farmers, which is the case now. And you realize that farmers from next season will no more farm rice. Nobody would go because the inputs are even getting more expensive, specifically fertilizer. So it's an industry that needs a huge focus by government, and it needs sincerity of purpose of people within the value chain. Now, every person that had invested from the private sector, including rice millers, are going out of business because you are not producing enough to supply the rice millers. Hence, the whole investment has gone down the drain. So it's not too complex. Yes, insecurity has been a part of it, but frankly, we had never gone to a position where we had a commanding share of the market. If you can't compare to China or Thailand, where they farm all year round. Whereas here, most of our farming is in rainy season. In Asia, what they do is they dam their waters and they follow that water all year round to make sure that there's a constant supply of rice. Hence, they can then control the price. But here, it's a tough ask. It will take us a long while to dam our rice, our waters. It will take us a long while to develop the market. It will take a long while to improve the implements. It will take a long while to be more efficient. Because if you look at it in a system sense, whoever farms in the village does not have a good enough car to carry it from his village to the market. That alone is a cost. If we don't have mechanized farming, there's a lot of labor inputs in it. How many of us have tractors? How many of us have thrashers? How many of us have processing mills? So it's something that you can't just, when you're talking of long-term planning or growth, it's not something you do in 4 years. It needs a commitment, it needs desire to do it and the will to do it, and sustained will over a long period of time. So, but again, you always have a very nice way of putting your questions, and I must say that it's quite commendable. But more importantly, what you said about pricing and forex, how you think it's not the value, it's not a fair enough value. I think it's rather subjective. Value is subjective. The Chinese renminbi is highly undervalued, but it's deliberate. You undervalue your currency because you want people to import from you. But even undervaluing your currency is not enough, because then you need to have security, just like Prof said, by stabilizing, by balancing the economy, by balancing the exchange rate. There's investor confidence, but that's not enough. As investor confidence, if I have $250,000, why would I bring it to Nigeria? I'd rather go to Ghana, where I know the Judicial Council will not go on strike for 2 months, so that if I want to pull out my money, I pull it out straight away. So there are so many layers to it. Nobody's going to bring $250,000 to invest when there's no security. Nobody is going to come and do that when there is no efficiency, where people are not educated, where there's no where there's no trust. There's so many things, but then I'll leave it at that. I mean, it's Prof's show, not mine.
No. Look, I am delighted to see this happening, because that's exactly what system dynamics should be. System dynamics is a collective exercise. And the fact that the fact that this discussion is taking place and that all those new ideas are being generated and discussed is excellent. And that's to me, it's very encouraging. I think this chapter is doing something which I believe is very useful. And I am very happy that I brought Modibo here. In fact, I brought Modibo here because I thought I would have problem with my computer. But now I will bring him at each time I do a presentation.
Prof, don't be too kind. Please, Kelechi, carry on.
Awesome. I think Mr. Abdullahi has something to say. I'll let him go on.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very interesting discussion. I wasn't quite comfortable when I heard the word ban. I think it's not outright ban. It's rather promoting local production. So by putting certain levies on the importation of rice, that is one. Then two, I also hear Modibo talk about, it's true that before the security challenge, our rice production was not enough, but insecurity has made it terribly worse. It has significant effect. And then again, for those of us in government that are worried about the development of the economy as well as the progress of the country, when it comes to implementing policy, you find out that all those authorities that have a say in the import are working at crossroad, because you find out that the president himself is not holding the person that is supposed to account to him responsible. You understand? So you find a fragmented market. A lot of people are just doing their own thing. Like in the auto sector now, that's the problem we're having. We have for a long time no policy. Eventually, the policy came in place for the first time in the history of the country. In fact, let me tell you outright, like the auto sector, until 2013, we didn't even have an articulated policy. It was when President Jonathan went to South Africa and he saw the amount of job creation from the auto sector that he said, hey, wait a minute, why is our own country not generating the same employment? And then he got people to work and they brought out the 2013 policy. 10 years down the line, there was no implementation. So of course, the auto plan is to be reviewed after every 10 years. So after 2020, after 10 years, which is 2023, it was looked at and there was no shift from 2013 to 2023. The minister, Doris, who is now Minister of State for Finance, came in and people advised her that there's no implementation committee. They set up the implementation committee 2 years ago. By March, it's exactly 2 years. You will not believe that all the bodies in the auto sector that are responsible for import, they have not sat once. This is where I am. They have not sat once. They are all working at crossroads. And so it is with other sectors, such that the policy is fragmented. You understand? That is a very serious issue to be considered in the model. You understand? I hope we understand this. People are working at crossroads. There are people that are profiting from the failure of the system because somebody is not controlling it. We must recognize that, and it is very key to the problem of Nigeria. If I use the auto sector example, the same thing with the energy sector, the same problem. Poor implementation. So we cannot overlook implementation of whatever policy is in place. You get it?
Yes, you are absolutely and totally right. And you remember what I said earlier. I said there is no economic growth in Nigeria. You see, there are two reasons why a country does not grow. One is because they do not know how to grow, and the other is because they do not want to grow. If a situation in which there is no growth favors a group of people who are taking advantage of that situation, why do you want them to change the system? I will not say more than that. Let Modibo talk to you.
Well, Kelechi, please, suggestion. Dr. Abdullahi, I think he's now a doctor, is from the, I think he's a director with the automotive industry.
Not yet. I'm still struggling.
Also soon to be doctor.
This gentleman is completely and totally right. And to me, this is the key problem of Nigeria. The problem of Nigeria is not the incapacity to do things, it's the unwillingness to do it.
Yes, and Kelechi, down to my suggestion, please, it would be nice if people introduce themselves so that we can know who is talking and from where. So Mr. Abdullah is soon going to be a doctor, he's pursuing his PhD, and he's from the automotive industry. He's a director in an MDA in the federal government of Nigeria. That being said, I still won't shy away from what Madam said, and it goes back to tax, and it's a central issue. I think there's more than enough reasons why Nigeria is not developing. But at the heart of it is that there's no social contract between the government and the people. And there is no incentive for the government to perform just like if it was a company. And my prediction, which is a desire, is that if the tax bill goes through and is implemented and people start paying taxes, there would be an incentive to hold the government, to account, because you don't pay anything to the government, so the government doesn't ask anything from you, and you don't ask anything from the government.
It's a good point.
You don't ask. And I mean, I'm not political, but if Tinubu succeeds in giving local government autonomy, and those monies go straight to local governments, and people are paying taxes, my brother, my sister, if you don't do your work, they will cane you in your local government, and that is when Nigeria will start. So I disagree with Prof respectfully.
They will not kill them.
No, at least and it's not that those set of people. Well,
Yeah,
it remains to be
I think
said. So
at the long run,
if
the long run,
vulcanizer
Modibo
gets
is
taxed,
correct.
if yeah,
On the long
yeah,
run, Modibo is
if
correct. Because the
yes,
system is so bad
because
now
you see,
that everybody is just waiting for his turn.
because if you see,
Let
because
me
you see, Mr.
can
Black, the thing with taxes is, yes, taxes basically at the heart of it when it comes to policy in tax is that to remove feathers from a fowl with getting the least amount of cry from it. So this is what the entire Oedele are trying to do, to get as many people in the basket so that we can start taxing. And once you start taxing, the next year or 2, 3, 4 years from now, it will increase. And so people will feel the pinch, and then people will start taking their government to account. Me, this is my prediction. I may be wildly wrong, but if we do that and they're able to double down, I think Nigeria will improve.
You're not wrong at all. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Let's pray it happens like that. Let's pray it happens like that. And I want to chip in something in relation to what Abdullahi Ayinde said, and why I don't have much. I'm not completely pessimistic, but I'm not very, very optimistic that this tax regime will do anything different. He was talking about a policy being in place. We have them. You see, when we have a policy, you also have to develop an implementation framework. I don't know about the one in the sector where you're talking about, but I've been in a number of committees, stakeholder committees to fashion out an implementation framework. These same people that will call you to come and develop a framework for implementation, they will be the ones to either resist you, or when you finish developing an implementation framework that should hold people accountable, they will go and change it. At the end, the final copy you see has nobody to be held accountable for anything. It doesn't even say how many. I mean, the metrics are not smart. You don't, no assigned number, no period of time to produce anything. So on that basis, there won't be any way you can monitor and evaluate, because the KPIs are not just there. So for people that are enlightened, are educated, see how they dribble you. They call you as an expert to come and help to develop an implementation framework. At the end of the day, they do what they want to do. I don't know how, if it is possible that the people that are not that enlightened, that are not that educated, will be able to hold them accountable. So that's why I seem to be not very optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm excited that we're having a very good time communicating and talking about the Nigerian economy, but I just want to be respectful of our time. I think, sorry, I think, Mr. Olusegun, we're struggling to hear you. Your
please, I want to
sound is not okay. Yeah, sure. Just quickly, please, because we're trying to bring this meeting to a close. Hello, are you still there? Hello, Mr. Olusegun. Okay, can't hear him for now, but this has been a very good conversation. Our president, Mr. Victor, will schedule a next meeting. We should be a follow-up on this conversation. Mr. Abdullahi, I would beg that you, if you want to say something quickly, that'll be fine. Probably the last words, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kelechi. So the madam that just finished talking, I didn't say there's no policy. I was complaining about the implementation. And for every sector, the people that I'm saying this so that for those of us that are passionate about the growth of the country, if we're in any position to do something, we should know where the problem is coming from. From the auto sector, I'm not keeping quiet. You see, the major problem for the economy is the Custom and Ministry of Finance. They are in our implementation committee and they are playing God. And because the president is not checking them, and so it is with anything that has to do with import, finance and custom have a major role to play. And for those of us that are here, if we ever have the chance and we are patriotic about this country, we must make these people sit and have discussion with other people that have say in the importation of anything you're handling.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
You will not get them to sit down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for this. It's been a very engaging session. We'll definitely follow up with the next steps and when we will gather like this again to talk more about the growth of the Nigerian economy. Thanks, Prof, for the presentation. And if that's fine, I would share, if you're fine with it, I would like to share the slide that you presented today with the group.
Yes, you can distribute the slide all over the place. You should also thank Modibo, not only me.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Modibo, for being there with Prof as well. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good week ahead.
Bye. Well done, guys.
Hi.
Well done, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you all.
So much.
Bye.